All right, so I'm very happy to have another South African on the podcast. So welcome, Xavier Knox. How are you doing?
Oh, good to meet you, Thanks for having me on, man.
It's a pleasure. Both Scott Holloway and Gavin talked about you, and I always ask my guests at the end, like, is there anybody who you would recommend as a guest? And that's the name that came up. So I'm like, all
Okay.
right, let's do that. You
Fantastic.
You're mainly known as a knife maker, or I don't know what is the term that you prefer to use? Knife maker sounds like you make some stuff. It's a little bit more than that, though.
Yeah, I do make more than just knives.
Yeah,
So I would call it a tool maker, a specialized tool maker. I can't call myself a blacksmith because I'm not into forging yet.
Hmm.
Uh, but that is one of my goals to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you get started? I mean, what has kind of drove you to to tools, knives, and so on?
Well, since I was a little guy, I've been obsessed with this sort of thing. As far back as I can remember, being in pre-primary school, pre-grade one, I got my first knife. It was a little black rubber dagger, and that thing went with me everywhere. It slept under my pillow. It went with me to preschool. I smuggled it in. It's just always been there. Like with most boys, it just didn't go away. It just got worse. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember having my first kind of like Swiss Army knife when I was a young kid, and that one also followed me a lot. It didn't evolve into an obsession with knives, but I'm a little bit of a collector, a small collection, just because for me the main thing is just craftsmanship, like something
Yeah.
that is well done. Doesn't matter if it's a knife or another tool or something else, but just that you see somebody who puts a lot of time and effort in designing something and then making it so that it actually works well, as opposed to just some mass-produced thing that is not bad, but we're talking a different kind of quality here. So that's kind of my appeal. But then the other question I want to ask is, why did you focus on defensive knives and tools as opposed to more general stuff?
That's also been a big obsession with me throughout my life. Um, I started training in karate when I was 9 years old. Um, Changed schools and systems within karate a couple of times because we moved as a family to different locations. Finally settling, I got to my shodan when I was 17, um, which is kind of the same time that I started training in ninjutsu with a friend of mine. But the ninjutsu was more combative style material versus traditional, um, martial arts. So that transition was quite something for me because the karate it was a martial art. It wasn't so much practical applications.
Yeah.
We learned how to punch hard and kick hard, but there were a lot of holes in when and how to apply that. You know what I mean? So having the skills, but not really having a roadmap on how to apply those skills, and the sort of combative side of things from that age up kind of filled that gap, and I just fell in love with it. That was also the first time I've had the two passions, the martial arts growing up and the knives growing up, but they never were in the same path. They're always separate things until I started ninjutsu. There we started with the actual blade work, and then yeah, that was it. Yeah, yeah, and
And
then
and
since then I've managed to spend some time with top level guys, learn a lot from them, and yeah, so all of my knife design and basic principles and concepts for the designs, are based off of that.
and do you still train ninjutsu, or did you branch out to other things as well, or
No,
what are
no,
you
no.
doing
So
nowadays?
yeah, so ninjutsu, it was only a couple of years.
Okay.
Then the school actually disbanded. Um, then I've been training with a friend of mine who introduced me to Kelly McCann's material
Yeah.
around early 2000s, mid 2000s. And now that lit a spark and kind of got me in a certain direction. Never thinking I would ever get the opportunity to meet the man, which I did twice, and then ended up, actually working with him, and I still am working with him. So that is, yeah, that's something that I don't take for granted.
Well, that's actually on my list of questions because I mean, for the audience who doesn't know, Kelly McCann is basically, one of the best, I think, instructors when it comes to self-defense, hand-to-hand combat, and so on, that is out there. He started becoming a little bit better known back in the day with Paladin Press under a pseudonym, Jim Grover,
Mm.
and then, long story, it's his to tell, but then eventually under his own name, and I always liked his stuff. I mean, what I particularly liked is that it was so no nonsense, like very
Yes.
clear. And also you could see that everything was well thought out. Everything was well considered. It's not just, okay, I like this technique and we're just mixing some stuff together. No, no, no. This needs to work. Needs to work right now. But most of all, what I saw in his combative stuff was really good body mechanics that allowed him to hit really, really hard. Surprisingly hard for, I guess, for a lot of people when they look at his size compared to, like really big guys. Pretty sure that Kelly hits it's harder than a lot of those big guys.
Yeah.
So that's what I liked. So how did you start with that? How did that come about, that collaboration with Combatives Knives and just out of the blue, or?
So I've been training this material for quite some time, just with the small group of friends. Um, a mutual friend of mine who got me into the combatives, a friend of his was arranging for Kelly McCann to come out here for a seminar. Um, yeah, I got very excited. I made sure I was on the list, and yeah, I got to meet him. Uh, Nothing really happened from that first meeting other than just like 3 solid days of hard training, which was fantastic. We had a lot of fun. Um, After that, I had shown him a couple of knives that I've made, but at that stage, my knife work was not, I wasn't making to sell. I was kind of just in the hobby stage. And I had made a blade collaborative design with this other guy. His name's Arno. Um, Kelly then, after it was about a year, so he came down in 2014 when we first met, and then in I think it was 20. Yeah, I don't know. Down again. I think it was late 2015.
Yeah.
Late 2015, he came down again to Cape Town, and we had relocated to Cape Town at that stage. And prior to that happening, though, I'd received an email from Kelly. So he had seen some of my work. Um, he sent me an email. Am I familiar with the gouge? Um, which Jeremy Krams had built the original gouge for Kelly. And funny story, I actually had that picture as my desktop background on my computer. So it was honestly, it was my brain was exploding. So he asked if I could pull it off, and I said, "Yeah, cool." And I made a prototype, and then he sent through a couple sketches of a very strange looking knife. I'm referring to the Canis. Um, at that time, it looked like nothing else out there. Um, he had designed it to be a folding knife initially. Now, I don't build folders. He had tried to get Emerson knives to run with it. They made a couple of prototypes, but I think due to costing or whatever, it just didn't work out. So then we chatted and we're like, well, let's do a fixed blade version and see how see how it works out. So when he did come down for the seminar in Cape Town. I did the handover, gave him his gouge and his canis. He was super stoked. I was super stoked. And yeah, that kind of solidified a long friendship, yeah, and collaboration.
That's great. That's great. And could you talk a little bit more about, both knives and what is kind of like the design particularities, the reasons why, and so on, the
Yeah,
differences between them?
I'm working on one of them today, so you're lucky I've got one in front of me.
Uh, Okay,
So
so
that
for
is,
the audience that is listening, you can watch this on YouTube and on Rumble. There's a video where Xavier is holding the knife up. So please check that out. You'll see. All right. Yeah, this is great.
okay. So this is the gouge. It's a small three-finger handle design. Sorry, my camera's inverted, so it's a little bit weird trying to navigate here. Kelly's initial idea was, to have a very functional knife, everyday utilities, small enough that you could, pull it out and not raise eyebrows. Um, but because of that Warncliffe design, it's if you need to use it in a pinch, this thing will be devastating. I've done pig carcass tests with this little blade, and it outcuts its size dramatically.
Yeah.
I call it the biggest little knife because it really is a really capable tool. So that's the gouge. And then the canis, I don't have a fixed blade here, but I've got the folder, which we might get into later. So Kelly has partnered with Spyderco, who've managed to bring the folding design of the canis to life. And he sent this one through to me, and it is just really is beautiful. It's got a compression lock, so it opens very smoothly.
Yeah.
The main part of this design, other than the fantastic ergonomics, from the get-go on all of the designs that Kelly has sent me, all the sketches are profiled and built exactly according to the sketch, and the grip and the feel is just so well thought out and actually researched, versus someone, this might work, and they send it off to a maker and get
Yeah.
a prototype back and then, tweak it. There was no tweaking with this thing. It was absolutely perfect. So that, and then the very unique part about this is the grind. So you'll see from the top view here,
Yeah.
it's got a very thick spine over there, so the normal spine, and then it's kind of tapers in
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
either side there. Now, how Kelly explained it to me was, obviously, yes, it does reduce weight, but that's not really the main function. He wanted something that will, accentuate the wound channel. Get a bigger wound channel going, get more oxygen into the wound, so get more blood flowing out of the wound, just to get the result quicker. And it being a Warncliffe, we did some cut tests. I think I might have a video on Instagram somewhere.
I've seen one, the latest one. That was quite impressive. Like,
Yeah,
the depth of the cut, and you did really,
yes.
really a good comma cut on it, and that was
Mm.
uh and that was with this one, I think, right?
Now the comic cut I think was with another design.
Okay.
Um, the test I did with this one, I built a Porkman. So Michael Janich
Yeah.
developed this, the Porkman. So you've got the dowel, a wooden dowel to simulate bone, just in case your viewers aren't aware. And then you've got meat wrapped around that, quite a thick slab of meat, and cellophane around that to simulate, cartilage and all the rest, and maybe some skin. And then clothing, and then an extra layer of clothing. And my nieces were here. It was December holidays, so my kids and my nieces came outside with me, and I was like, "Okay, right, let's make a video. Let's have some fun. Let me teach you some stuff." And I just showed them a simple snap cut
Yeah.
with this design, very quick. I didn't load it up. I went from here, snap cut,
Yeah.
and that went through everything and actually nicked the dowel and left a cut in the dowel.
Nice.
And yeah, if that doesn't convince you that of the design, and that's how he designed it. He designed it to behave exactly like it behaved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the idea is that just with minimal force and strength, you can actually get a really, really good cut in.
Yeah, and I mean that's the whole advantage of a blade or any blade, You don't need strength. It's not
Yeah.
a stick. You're not trying to knock them unconscious. It's it's speed and accuracy and intent. Your
Yeah.
intent, I think, is more important than anything else. Yeah.
You mentioned just before, that the ergonomics of the grip are really good. What are some of the points that you look for in good ergonomics for a grip?
A decent finger choil where if you're holding it, regardless of what grip, if your hands get oily or wet, and you hit something hard and the blade stops and your force continues, without that there, you don't want your hand running onto that edge because that'll
Yeah.
immediately put you at a disadvantage. Um, that along with this very, very slight return over here for the pinky.
Yeah.
Um, and then obviously over here, filling up the rest of the hand. But that little return, you can really manipulate the blade, bring it in, take it out very quickly, very easily. Um, it just feels right. Nothing feels wrong. There's no gaps in the hand. It doesn't feel too thin or anything like that.
Yeah. And do you have any preferences yourself when it comes to like the size of the handle? Like because everybody's hand is different, obviously, but you prefer smaller grips or larger ones, or is it just depending on the knife itself?
Yeah, I think I don't like something that's too big. I don't want anything protruding too much out of my hand. See, this is okay. Um,
Yeah.
if it was, close that. If it was something like that, like a lot of the larger cold steel knives,
Yeah.
the like the
Yeah.
Voyager XL or triple XL, you know, or 6XL, where that thing it's obviously designed that you can grab the very tip and you've got reach and all of
Yeah.
that. I'm using that as an exaggerated example, but yeah, just something that fits in your hand. There's not a lot for someone to be able to manipulate that blade out of your hand.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously the top piece, good luck holding on to that, even at that speed.
Yeah.
So
I've got a good friend, Barry Eisler, who writes novels, and he tries to be, as close to reality as possible with his writing. And his characters use weapons, and one of them he's a really big guy, and he used a cold steel. It might have been the Voyager, I forget, but it's like this huge folding knife. And and
yeah,
and Barry bought it and he showed it to me. It's like, look, this is so nobody can. It's not practical. You don't carry it easily and so on. It just doesn't make any sense. But it's just so cool to have. It's like this big, and I mean, I'm sure Cold Steel makes some solid knives. I mean, I always enjoyed when they did the testing. Just the over the top testing with all their swords and
yes,
weapons and
yeah.
so on. So there's always a lot of fun to watch. So I'm sure that one will be able to withstand some punishment as well. But there's no way you're going to walk around carrying that in your pocket.
Actually, I don't know if you're familiar with the cold steel folding kukri.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's also sizable. I'm not joking. The handle is you can't really see with in relation because of the camera.
Yeah,
I would say maybe she's 7, 8 inches of the
I'm,
handle.
I'm going to look it up right now.
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
didn't even
I
know
know
they
a
made
guy
that.
who I know two guys actually who carry those,
All
and
right.
one of them is in proportion to the blade, so it doesn't look that wrong in his hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can imagine, trying some shit, and this guy pulls out a folding sword like that. Yeah, your motivation runs away a
Uh,
lot quicker than you will.
and if it doesn't, then maybe you need to, readjust your life expectations a little bit, and your views on reality are maybe a little bit
Yeah.
skewed. I just pulled it up. Yeah, that looks like a pretty solid blade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's huge.
But that's it kind of comes back to what we were just talking about handle length and that it needs to be proportionate to your own hand, obviously your size. And if you're a really big guy, obviously you can, you can walk around carrying something that's quite large.
Mm.
But I wonder if it's possible for somebody like that, in whatever their line of work may be, is that a fixed knife wouldn't be more interesting then if you've got the body size to carry something large. Maybe that would be a better choice. What do you think?
Yeah, look, for a defensive blade, um, I would definitely suggest going with a fixed blade. Simply because when you're under duress, when that adrenaline cocktail hits you, um, fine manipulation, trying to open a folding knife is, yeah, I don't want to have to train that. I would rather train accessing the fixed blade. Um, it's just I think a higher success rate.
Yeah. And this
And I
is actually
mean,
one of the questions that Toby Corn wanted me to ask you. So that
yeah,
that folding blades do they have a place in self-defense carry or not?
I think they do. I think they do. Look, here in South Africa, the knife laws are have changed quite a lot. So there's no limit on size of knife that you can carry, provided you're not in a sketchy place and you don't look sketchy. If you do, and the cops, come and interview you, and they find you with tools which they could consider housebreaking tools, or a knife that if it seems out of place,
Yeah.
then you could get into some shit. But as an everyday person, that's not the case. So back to Toby's question, um, if we're walking through an area and you're not feeling, too confident, but you don't have much of a choice, which is a lot of South Africa, you just cupping that in your hand and just going for a walk,
Yeah.
learning how to, hold on to it, but be, here it is concealed. I'm having a conversation, and if you need to, it's there.
Yeah.
Um, I think the biggest problem with a folding knife for defense is the access, if
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Getting it into
Yeah.
your hand. I think once it's in your hand, it's not going to take much to flick that marble to open the blade. It's a case of, you know, fumbling in your pocket trying to get it out while you're being, manipulated by three other individuals, trying to get everything out of your pockets. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah.
wrote an article about that a while ago about some training mistakes that people make when they work with edged weapons and one of them is something that I learned from Terry Trahan, whom you also know. And he says you have to earn the draw, and I think that's where a lot of it goes wrong. Is
Yes.
that people just assume, well, I have the weapon on me, so I'll just I'll train with the weapon, and that's it. No, that crucial step of being able to deploy that weapon, draw it, and then use it. That's kind of the missing link that I see a lot of people just skip over that one, and then they don't understand why like you said, they fumble in the pocket or they drop the knife and so on.
Yeah.
They only half open it because it doesn't go to a full lock because of adrenaline and so on. And from my perspective, I think practicing the draw and all the different kinds of draws that you can do. It doesn't have to be a big dramatic one. Can be a concealed one. Could be a bunch of things. And working with all those parameters can be so much more useful than all the time people spend, doing angle 1, 2, 3, and so on.
Yes.
With just in mind that it, it it needs to be just as automatic as all the other techniques that you do, in my opinion. Because otherwise, I mean, I don't see anybody in the firearms community say like, no, no, you don't have to practice drawing the firearm. If you carry it in a holster. No, no, no. Just it's going to be fine. Just grab it however you like, and you'll be able to pew pew pew, and it's going to be fine. Uh,
Yeah.
Maybe there's some people out there because there are for sure some interesting characters in that world as well. but I'm in full agreement with you. I recently saw a video of it was in South Africa, a guy being carjacked, and he by three guys, and he steps out, has this huge look like a Bowie knife, and he's just keeping the guys off of him, and it takes them a
Yes.
fair amount of time before they decide like maybe we don't want to mess with this guy anymore. But that's kind of the point. You're going to your car, you want to drive away, you're going about your business, and all of a sudden you've got three guys jumping you in an area where you are reasonable to expect them to be carrying weapons.
Yeah,
Gotta get your knife out. You
absolutely.
have one, you have to get to it.
Yeah. And I think, that's where your empty hand skills have to come in as well. It's no good. There's a lot of gun guys and they are just gun guys. I've got my gun. That's all I need. I was in the army 30 years ago. I don't need training, that kind of mentality. And if you think about it, your bad guy's going to attack you when it's most advantageous to him and least to you. So he's going to wait till you're distracted, jump you. Now, you can't just go for your weapon. If you just straight try and go for your firearm, they're going to take it off you. You got to have those skills, create space, hurt them a little bit, then access your tool. Yeah, we need more of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of work was done with Dennis Tueller back in the day with the Tueller drill.
Yes.
And I've written some stuff on that as well because there's a lot of misunderstanding about that as well. But his main point was that it's about danger. It's about if you let somebody close the distance with a knife, it's going to get you before you can draw your firearm. The point is not that you should stand there. The point is that you need, like you said, empty hand skills, like back the guy off as you go for the draw, move offline, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a bunch of things you can do that negate his advantage that he has if he just simply sprints at you with a knife. But you have to train for it.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of it in the martial arts community, self-defense, combatives, firearms, and so on. There's a lot of overlap there still, but in all those communities, a lot of dogma still, in my opinion, where people are just like, oh, well, this is the principle and that's it, we're done. Like, well, no. A principle needs to be applied in real life, and it will stretch so far until it breaks, like everything else. Like there's not just one principle, there's many, and all the factors
Yes.
interact. So how about we look at the whole as opposed to just say like, oh no, this is it, and we're done talking.
Yeah.
I go on rants sometimes, so you can stop me anytime.
No, I'm quite familiar with with that. I do the same thing. I try and explain a simple topic and I'm veering off around here. But I'll eventually get back there as well. So don't stress.
Okay.
Oh,
I wanted to ask, I mean, from what I've seen of your work, there seems to be multiple sources of inspiration. I'm gonna butcher the name, the skin do or something like Scottish style knife
oh,
that
the
you
skin
have.
do.
Skin
Yeah.
do, okay.
Yes.
There's the dragon scale dagger looks very Chinese to me, and the renard looks Persian or Indonesian to me. Is that something that you look for on purpose, or is it just something else like random? How did
Well,
you?
the Scottish knives. I've got Scottish ancestry, so it goes a little deeper there. I have a lot of love for that culture and their tools. The skin do's got quite an interesting history. Um, if no one is familiar with it, I suggest just go onto Wikipedia or somewhere and just go read up on it in your own time. As far as you mentioned, which other one? The dragon scale dagger,
Yeah,
the ring dagger.
yeah, that looks very much like a Chinese dagger, the traditional ones.
Yes. So that one was very much based off of the SOCP dagger, SOCP dagger.
Yeah,
Was it Benchmade? I think it's
I don't
Benchmade.
remember. It could be, but
Yeah. So I wanted something just because I was playing with a training version of one, and I didn't like the skeletonized grip. It just didn't work for me. So I took the design, changed it slightly to fit me. I put scales on it, just to fill my palm a bit better. And then when I figured out the dragon scale grind which is now the hollow grind on the one full flat, and
yeah,
then on the other flat is a traditional dagger grind into a reinforced tip, so that when you put the edge on there, if you're looking at it sideways, you can see the width of that stock material carries all the way through to just about that far away from the tip of the knife, where it starts tapering to that tip. So you've got a lot of strength there, but you've also got a lot of weight reduction with that hollow grind on the belly. So
Yeah.
that one just kind of happened. I didn't plan on it happening like that. I was just messing around, and it came about. And I've since then used that reinforced tip grind on a couple of other designs as well. And then with the we're talking about the maybe the Vixen. We're not referring to the Vixen.
Let me see. Yeah, I've got your website open up here. Yeah, yeah, okay.
So this one was actually a collaboration with Terry Trahan's brother, Edwin Boskamp.
Yep.
So I met Edwin in Cape Town. He would travel from the US to Cape Town quite regularly for work.
Yeah.
And we got connected and we met up. I went to go drop off some knives for him to give to Terry. And then we started discussing stuff. And this was the result of one of those discussions. And it's a brilliant design. Now, for those who don't know, Edwin is he's a Salat
yeah.
man. And he's been doing it for fucking a long ass time. So I mean he knows what he wants and what works for him and all of that. So there are quite a few cool attributes to this knife. Firstly is the pistol grip. For a stab, you don't need to articulate your wrist so much. You can keep a very solid, grip on there. This is traditionally a full grind over here, and then a partial spine grind. So you can do a lot of,
like a rip.
Yeah, a lot of ripping in that, and even in reverse, it's actually quite a comfortable blade. Yeah, so that's where the influence for this came from, was Edwin. Yeah.
You see a lot of pistol grip type, edged weapons in the Indonesian culture. So that's what I'm guessing. Where as Edwin is a slot player,
Yes.
that there's a lot of influence coming from that area as well. I'm checking here. Yeah. And the Renard, is that something that anything special about that? Because to me that looks a little bit. It looks longer. The length of the blade looks a lot longer than the other ones that you made, or am I mistaken there?
Which one is that one?
The Renard.
Oh, the Renard. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Renard is basically this one's big brother.
Yeah.
So Vixen actually means it's a female fox. Renard is a male fox.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, with Edwin's background with a Salatinate, it's basically this knife, exactly the same handle, exactly the same angle, but with a 6-inch blade, which he manages to carry around no problem. He's a big guy though. He's a very tall
I know. I've met Edwin.
Yeah. Yeah. So the trick to that knife was finding the balance. Like with all of these designs, even the smaller blades, balance is important. If you've got a blade heavy, design, your movements are going to be very different versus having a balance kind of like in the choil.
Yeah.
And even in that Renard, the balance is about there.
Yeah.
Even with that long blade. So once we figured out the balance on that thing, when you pick it up and hold it, it wants to dance. It wants to go and do bad things. It's yeah, I love it. I love that design.
And for the folks, so Edwin is Dutch. I'm Flemish, so we're kind of neighbors, like the US and Canada. So we poke fun at each other for speaking the same language. Renard, so a male fox, but Reinaard the Vos. So Reinaard the fox is an old epic poem from about 800 years ago. So it's relatively well known. I mean, I knew about it. I learned about it in school. I'm not sure if today's young people learn about it anymore. but this is like one of the oldest epic poems that we have about the fox Renard who's obviously more clever than anybody else that he encounters and is up to some mischief every now and then. So you can look that up. It's Reinaard de Vos, or let me see, Van den Vos Reinaarde. So it's medieval literature. So it's really old.
Okay, I'll check that out.
It's you know, being cunning like a fox and so on. I'm guessing,
Yes.
you know, over here that's you know that saying is coming from that kind of stuff. What's your process for designing a knife? Do you start with like an idea, or like something you want to work with, or a specific type of metal that you want to work with, or how do you get started?
Well, it'll depend. If it's one of my thought I'd put this into airplane mode.
That's okay. That's okay.
And I went out of airplane mode to go and try and sort out the comms.
That's fine.
Yeah, if it's one of my own designs, it'll generally be an application first. You know, why are you making this knife, and what application, you know, do you see this thing performing? Once you've got that figured out, then there are criteria. Okay, this is a defensive knife. How is it different to these other knives? I've got a collaboration, which I designed a knife for a guy here called the KCP. So it is also a defensive knife, very much based on the concept of the clinch pick, the way that you carry it on the waistband with the handle tilted slightly down. My personal issue with the original clinch picks was the egg-shaped handle tended to roll in my hand. This was before guys started modifying them and changing them down the line, like Bantang, for example. But he does some fantastic work. So I designed this thing in such a way that it would be easy to carry, it would be quick and easy to draw, it would not print. It's a very big thing. If you carry a weapon in this country, you don't want anyone to see that you're carrying it. You know, apart from, you know, just getting a raised eyebrow, don't give a fuck about that. It's a case of the wrong guy seeing it, and now you're going to get targeted for that tool. So this is it. So I'll use this as an example for that design question. So one of the criteria was must have a small handle. We don't want any protrusions at all. Even in a bigger hand, just exaggerating my grip here, you know, you'll get a full grip on this thing. It must not move.
Yeah.
Full double edge, so it's business all the way around. So the only thing that's sticking out of your hand is bad news. So no one can take that away from you. And then obviously the aesthetic part of it comes last, but it is a thing that I consider because, you know, I'm an artist in my head, you know, I just see things in a certain way. So like texturing the grip the way that I do, it's not, yes, it's very aesthetically pleasing, but it has a second, well, actually the aesthetic is a secondary to it actually providing traction and grip in your hand. So the tests that we do with our trainers is we use baby oil on our hands to simulate the viscosity of blood.
Yeah.
And then, you know, try and access and see how the tools behave, you know, in a safe environment using trainers. And, you know, the textured handles definitely make a difference versus the smooth stuff. Even with you know, nice, decent ergonomics, that little bit of extra traction, tactile sense goes a long way. And then as far as designing with collaborations in mind, I'm very careful who I collaborate with. I'll only collaborate with someone who I know understands the tool. I've had a lot of guys send me designs that look a little odd, that might look nice, but are completely impractical, you know. And it's not a case of I know better than them. It's a case of I've done similar things, you know, through this knife making uh, habit
Mm.
of mine. So I've kind of come to understand, you know, the principles of what are going to make a good knife and what are going to possibly, you know, hinder that knife from performing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, we're almost going to go to the bonus segment for my patrons, but I want to quickly go over some more questions from Toby.
Yeah, yeah.
What's your favorite blade and ever and why?
Geez, Toby. um, so I don't know, man. You know, I go through stages where that'll change.
Yeah. What's
You
it right
know,
now?
at the moment it's the canvas, simply
Okay.
because I'm because this is still new to me and I'm playing with it like a fidget toy. But you know, from a user standpoint, a Warncliffe is probably my most favorable blade. Um, even though I carry this one on a daily basis, I carry it to support another tool which I cannot afford anyone to take off of me because I won't go into details in the video of what the tool is, but you get what I'm saying.
Hmm.
um, but yeah, the Warncliffe in that, you know, you don't need to know a lot. You don't need to spend the next 5 to 15 years in a knife syllabus, you know, learning how to use that tool. And I'm not knocking that. I mean, guys who are into that sort of thing and can run tools like that, they exist. And I've actually collaborated with the guy, I don't know if you're familiar with Mark Human of MDW. So he he teaches internationally, but he's based in Cape Town. So we collaborated on a push dagger called the Cohort. So it's an asymmetrical push dagger, quite a wide leaf shaped blade. Um, and I used to train with Mark when I lived in Cape Town, and that was more. It was practical knife stuff, but you need time to invest. You know, it's a lot of reciprocal work. You know, picking up the lines. You can only learn to pick up lines when someone is throwing, you know, a 1, a 2, 3, and a 4. You know, all of those angles.
Yeah.
And for someone who only has a couple of days, this isn't their obsession. This isn't their hobby. They want some knowledge. They've got a couple of days. Um, that's where Kelly McCann's syllabus comes in, you know, fantastically, especially his knife work for quick study. It's very much a 1, 2, you know, as in snap cuts and a stab,
Yeah.
you know, and you you don't really need more than that to get out of a quick jam. I mean, um, and Mark actually runs a couple of those courses as well, like a consolidated course, very basics. This is all you need to get out of a jam. Just like 2 or 3 techniques and mindset.
Yeah.
Mindset being quite a big one. And yeah,
All right. Next question from Toby. What are Xavier's rules of EDC? So that's everyday carry for the audience.
my rules.
Yes.
Yeah,
Toby putting you on the spot.
yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to work that one out.
Or just some general advice, from your
Yeah.
perspective.
If if you're allowed to in your country, get a firearm. Get proficient in your firearm. Um, get proficient in keeping your firearm. So stopping people from accessing your tool using supplementary tools like a knife, you know, like a spray, an impact tool. Yeah, there's certain things that I carry with me every day. Um, one of them is a light, flashlight. You know, that is probably one of my favorite defense tools, apart from it just being practical. Because I mean, with the load shedding that we have in this country,
Yeah.
you can go to one of the malls here in the middle of the day, and this has happened to us on several occasions. And load shedding kicks in, and for a couple of seconds, 5 to 10 seconds before the generators kick over, it's complete darkness.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a building with a whole lot of people, and it's complete darkness. So flashlight, very important. You can take someone's vision away. If they can't see you, they can't hurt you. Um, as well as it being an impact tool. So this is very much a multi-tool for me. Um, I'll always have a light and I'll always have a knife.
Yeah.
If you can get a firearm, and if you get a firearm, carry it all the time. The safe is only there because it's a requirement to get the firearm. It stays on your person. Um, that is very important. There are a lot of individuals uh, down here where they'll go through the hassle of getting the firearm, and it's quite an arduous process. And then it'll sit in the safe for home invasions. If something happens at home, they'll go to the safe and they'll get the gun out. But by the time you're aware of someone getting into your property, they're already in your property. They're leaning
Yeah.
over you in your bed with a screwdriver, or they're on your chest already putting it into you. So yeah, you've got to have your layers, obviously, in that respect. Back to EDC. Um, if you're going to make holes, you must be prepared to patch those holes. This isn't a one-way relationship you've got going here. You aren't just sending, dangerous tools that way. They're going to be coming this way as well. And for instance, I carry a tourniquet in my pocket. Um, I don't carry gauze or anything like that because now that is just now making too much for me to carry. But
Yeah.
I've got at least that. Um, I might also carry some Celox granules sachet. It's very small. Just fold it up and stick it in with the tourniquet. At least then, if I've got a wound or whatever, I can just bomb that into the wound. And this could be a wound from anything. I mean, I'm in the workshop here all day by myself. Um, some of that equipment is quite dangerous. If I'm using my buffing machine and it grabs one of the knives that I'm buffing and throws it into me, fortunately that hasn't happened, but it has thrown it down into the ground. But that was enough of a wake-up call. In order for me to get to my phone or get help, I need to make sure that I can at least make an attempt
Yeah.
to, to look to patch what I can before someone arrives. But fortunately, my wife is now working it from home as well, so she's in the house, and she's also trained with the stop the bleed stuff and all of that. So she's got her own kit. So if something does happen, at least I've got her to, patch me up. Um, what else? What else? Obviously, I generally carry a writing implement. This one just happens to be solid brass.
Yep.
So,
I'm a big fan of those as well.
yeah. So I can fly with this. I can go anywhere with this. I can go into a court building.
Yeah.
No restriction. Even that.
Yeah.
Those two items, I can go anywhere. And with these two
Yeah.
items, you can procure all the other items. So
Well, this
yeah,
is one of the things that I often see is when people, look at everyday carry and they're like, your tactical pen and tactical this and that. I'm like, no, just buy a very solid one that just says pen, because in the aftermath of you using it, you should be prepared for law enforcement and the justice system to take a closer look at it.
yes,
And just imagine the field day that the attorney of the people suing you will have when they discover that you bought a tactical pen. And then they go look you up
yes,
on the internet and they see that you're into knives and weapons and so on, and kind of paint a picture of you being this homicidal maniac who's clearly guilty. And whereas his client, who was actually the crazy guy attacking you, he's a poor victim of your insane violence. So just get
yeah,
like, you will be able to find a solid brass pen that just says pen. and it's going to be just as good as the tactical one, but it's not going to have the flashy name or the skull engraved on it or anything like that.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, everything's got a Punisher skull on it. It's like, oh man.
I like it. It's like, there is such a thing as CCTV, and everybody now has less a cell phone. First thing that happens when the fighting starts is people whip out their phone and they record it. And they typically don't, I mean, if that's what happens, they don't record the guy punching you first. They will record you punching that guy in the face first or stabbing him or whatever you're doing. So that's what the
Yeah,
record, what the video record will show. And then it has a beautiful Punisher logo on your whatever you're using. So yeah, I mean, the fantasy is obviously a whole lot more fun than the reality of everything that comes with
yes.
violence.
Yeah.
That was a mini rant on my end. It's a small one.
Yeah.
um, Another question from Toby, and we've got to watch the
Yeah.
time because you have errands to run afterwards. Um, some tips about approaches to both preventing and reacting to a carjacking.
Sure. Okay. In this country, that's a tricky one because the guys will not always wait for you to comply. Some of these guys will just straight up come next to you, pull the trigger, and
Yeah,
pull you out of the car. You know, just for a cell phone sometimes. Just to steal your cell phone, they'll they'll waste around. Um, Words. You must you've got to train this as well. This is something I actually learned from Mark Human's wife, Kelly Arrowsmith. She does a lot of real self-defense, and in her self-defense, uh, you know, it, self-defense isn't the act of dealing with the process. It's all of the time prior to that event happening.
yeah,
You've got all of this time to prepare. This is where you're training, stop the bleed, um, practice how to articulate your words. So if you're being mugged or carjacked, okay, yes, I'm reaching now to undo my seatbelt. I'm just reaching to undo the seatbelt. Let them know what you're doing. If I just reach, he might
yeah,
think I'm going for a gun or a knife or whatever, and then it's over. Um, using your words, um, maybe even weaponizing your words. Try to deceive them. If you can see that this is going to go wrong, regardless of how you comply, and you need to press the button, um, distract him somehow. Get his guard down ever so slightly because this dude is also his adrenaline is up here.
yeah.
His fingers on the trigger. He's probably shaking. Um, you just don't know. It could be a seasoned criminal. It could be a guy who has been just joined a gang and his initiation is now go and jack that car. Um, yeah, it's very tricky. But I think that is probably the most important is to be clear. Let them know what you're going to do before you do it. On the street as well. Yes, I have a wallet. There's cash in my wallet. I'm reaching for my wallet. Give them a wallet. He wants the car. If there are kids in the car, they already know. Um, we kind of practice this sort of thing. Um, if I just get out the car first, and this dude jumps in and drives off with my kids. Now, obviously, my kids are big now. They're like 17 and 20. So that's not really an issue. They don't really travel so much with us anymore. Um, but to get them out the vehicle first.
Yeah.
Then I will get out of the car, which is the control center. They can't take the car, while I'm there. So I'm not fighting with them. I'm not arguing with them. I'm just try and very gently, get them out of danger, get them out of the picture. I'll get out of the picture. Take the car, take my wallet. I don't care. It's insured. You know what I mean? That's what insurance is for. I don't want to have to uh, shoot the guy or stab the guy, and now I need to sit with the third fight, the legal battle, because that can get pretty awkward in this country if they decide to put you away for a little while. That environment is not good for my demographic in this country. you won't last long, regardless of how many skills you are, whether you're a
Yeah, it's not
ninja.
gonna work out.
It's not going to work. You want to avoid that place just as much as you want to avoid this guy inflicting his damage on you. So it gets very, very complicated. I don't know, does that answer the question?
No, I think it's a good answer. One more from Toby, and he says, "Could you tell some more about the practicalities of how a neighborhood watch and similar groups are organized in South Africa?"
Okay, I'm part of a neighborhood watch here, but we are a little different than in the city. So we're in a semi-rural to rural area. A lot of farmers. We have one grocery store within like 150-kilometer radius, kind of thing. So when it comes to seeing an incident, we generally travel in twos. So we'll drive around and just scout the area. If something looks odd, you know, we'll send info to the main hub.
Yeah,
So you know, we won't just Rambo it, because that is now just stupid. You're just looking for shit. Um, um, they will alert certain authorities, because a lot of the houses here have got armed response. There are like three different options up here for armed response. So put the message through to the group. Whoever's receives that message will then let certain the relevant response people know. They will deal with the situation. We're just simply there to be eyes, to be seen, because we've noticed we had quite a heavy crime season where these drug addicts were coming up from the cities up to
yeah,
these rural towns. They were actually being chased out of the cities up here. And they would steal the most arbitrary things. The plastic fittings off of your hose pipe, you know? They'll leave the hose pipe and take the plastic fittings and go and buy this cheap, horrible drug that'll just keep them going until they start painting and they need another hit. Um, so, yeah, we don't actually get involved with that. If there's a situation where it's evident some dude's busy getting mauled by like a group of guys, look, then you kind of need
yeah,
to do something. But just them seeing that vehicle with the lights, the spotlights, and the guys flashing their flashlights out the windows, driving slowly, is enough to deter it. So just us doing that got these guys to actually move on to the next sort of like little village, if you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah. It's so something I've talked about a lot, in the podcast on the podcast over the years. Just that if you live in like a very let's say quiet Western country where not that much happens, just the whole idea of a neighborhood watch and a bunch of drug addicts, coming from the cities, basically rampaging through your area. That's not something that is common in many Western countries, and just this mindset is radically different. And it kind of relates to a question I wanted to ask you anyway, because in 2021, you guys had a lot of civil unrest with riots, looting, and so on after Jacob Zuma was put in prison.
Mm.
Um, Last time I talked to Skalk about it, he said like, you're the first one to ask about this. Nobody asks about this anymore. It's like not even in South Africa. So what's it
Yeah,
been like since then for you and the area that you live at? Were you affected or not, or how do you
yeah.
view
Look,
that period?
the area was affected quite badly. So between us and the next main city, there are two very small little villages similar to ours on the way up to us. So it's a single road. There's only one way into our village and then one way out the other way. So you're kind of like a through road. And on the incoming side, on the one city side, these guys came in masses. We woke up in the morning. I think it was a Monday morning. I can't remember what day it was. Just ready for a normal day. But now you're just hearing gunshots. You're like, those gunshots. Like, no, those are rifles. Someone's shooting rifles. And there were gunshots going throughout the day in
Yeah.
bursts. And it was fucking scary, man. Um, so by that evening, our community watch had arranged for volunteers to all meet. We then stations kind of cut access off in and out of town, with there only being one way in on this side and one way out on that side. It was quite easy. And then we just worked shifts for about a week, just in case it happened again. Because what these guys did is, as they came up, they were burning
Mm.
predominantly grocery stores. So the one town closest to us, they completely wrecked. I mean, a couple of weeks after this event, we were driving down to the city, driving through this havoc, and actually seeing it firsthand was was insane. It was building a building that completely burnt. It was just a shell, and there were just small businesses, man, small business owners uh, lost everything.
Yeah.
And then coming into our town in that morning, they started looting all of the shops as you come into town and trying to start fires and that. And that's when the local law enforcement and security companies kind of banded together. And that's what those gunshots were, basically chasing them out.
Yeah.
They were being fired back upon, but they did manage to hold them off. And then for the rest of that week, we were all on high alert, obviously, during our shifts, just waiting. If a vehicle, there were quite a few vehicles coming in with like canopies, buckies with canopies on that, and very suspicious, looking. We had to stop the vehicles. Is there anyone in there? There generally are people in on the back of buckies in South Africa, especially in the rural areas.
Yeah.
It's a very, very poor um, versus the, the how do I word this? Um, Between the middle class and the poor is huge.
Yeah.
There's no, it's like extreme poverty and then middle class, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, seeing 10 people on the back of a bucky driving into town is quite normal. When it happened during that week, we all got pretty stressed. Who are these guys? Are they trying to get into here? They made it pretty clear that they wanted to take out our shopping, our grocery store. They had been targeting a specific grocery store chain all the way from the city all the way through. And the next closest grocery store for us residents was like 150 k's away. So it was pretty scary. But fortunately, after that first day and them holding those guys off, we didn't have anything else. And since then, it's been pretty quiet. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing those images. There wasn't much about it on the news over here, unlike many other things that were happening around that time. But I remember seeing this just thousands of people just looting everything, a brewery, supermarket, I mean, a shopping mall, whatever it was. They were just all over it and destroying it. And I talked to Skalk about it and other people and so on. And the point was basically that, for a bunch of people who live there or live near there, or like in your case, like the next grocery store is like 100 or more kilometers away from you. If you need a prescription for your medication and so on, that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
You can't get it anymore. And if you don't have
Yeah.
transportation, well, fuck you then. It's your problem. And just the massive
100%.
destruction and the snowball effect that has in the long term, because you don't just rebuild that's not how it works. You can't just rebuild it. And like you said, a bunch of people who have their own store that's destroyed. Yes, you may have insurance, but that doesn't mean that you can automatically just the next day have that shop up and running again. There might
Yeah.
be a bunch of other factors involved that people don't know about. They might have outstanding loans. They might just
Yeah.
have remortgaged their house to build an expansion on the store and so on. And now it's gone, and the bank is there like, pay us, and I'm like, I can't, and that's it, you're done, and
Yeah.
it's over. And it's this whole again, this chain reaction that sets in motion that people often don't understand is how, yes, you see the looting and then you forget about it, but the people living there have sometimes years on end having to live with the consequences. And I think South Africa in that regard is maybe one of the better examples in the sense that, with the internet being what it is, you can see it happening in real time and
Yeah.
talk to people like you, like who live there, like what was it like? And that's kind of my last question because I know you have to go in 5 minutes, but what is it
I'm
like
actually
right
good.
now?
My wife's gone to do my chores.
Oh, okay, then it's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Okay, what's it like right now? Is it like more stable, still unrest, or
No,
about
so
to explode? How would you
we haven't
compare
had
it?
any real unrest that's affected us at all. I believe the Western Cape had a similar issue a couple of months ago. Um, I think it was the transportation guys. I think it was the taxi bosses where they blocked off the entire highway, with taxis so that, complete shutdown, trying to, I don't know, prove some other point. It really doesn't make any logical sense. For example, our roads are pretty fucked here. Um, if you hit a pothole at the wrong angle in the wrong vehicle, you'll wipe yourself and your family out.
Yeah,
Um, and that is as a result of not just heavy trucks on the road, but the poorer communities who are uneducated. Um, if their water supply, stops working, trying to get the municipality to go and fix that. I mean, they already don't have anything. Now they don't have water.
yeah,
So what they do is they go to the nearest main road, they'll block it off, and they'll burn tires on the road. Um, what happens when you burn tires is it actually destroys the tarmac,
yeah,
creates, so they are kind of doing this in protest of service delivery while fucking up the service delivery. You know what I mean? The infrastructure. It's sad, but at the same time, when you have nothing, what else do you do? You know?
yeah. There's no good
Um,
solutions left.
it's oh, it's yeah,
Yeah, I don't know any good solutions or anything that you could say like, okay, do this and that's going to fix it. I have no idea. I have no idea. I think there's a lot of people who often talk about, society and so on, and like, oh, this is horrible and something needs to be done. And I'm like, yes, but what exactly? And then we get
yeah,
to one of my favorite points is that I think it was Thomas Sowell who said it, but it could have been something else, somebody else. It's like there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. So whatever it is you decide to do, it's not going to be perfect.
yeah,
Um, it, Not in this world, unless you have unlimited means and funds, but that never happens. So there's going to be trade-offs. All right, and it's going to be messy. And in the end, the result may be that a lot of people will be unhappy, only a few happy, or vice versa. And if it's only a few unhappy, but they're very powerful and rich, they have the means to make your life miserable. And so well, that's just
yeah.
society's always been like that. Um, and I mean, we'll see how it goes, but from my perspective in the Western world, the institutions are failing. Europe is going to have a lot of problems with, lack of electricity and so on.
Oh, is
And
it?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's a long story. I won't go into too much, but Germany is the engine of the European economy. They shut down all their nuclear plants. They are now burning more coal and so on than ever before. They spend the most of any European country on going green, renewables, and it's not working. And they shut down and are shutting down their nuclear reactors, which means that electricity has become very expensive, less reliable.
Yeah,
And now the deindustrialization is happening. So really big companies like BASF and so on are closing down their production indefinitely or leaving the country with parts of their plants, which means that a lot of other companies will also be either closing down or downsizing, and the economy is going to go down the drain. There's no other way, and you cannot fix this in a few weeks' time. A nuclear power
yeah,
plant, you don't
yeah,
just switch it on and off, and you don't just build one. And renewables aren't cutting it. And people will get very upset when I say this, but okay, You can talk about the reasons why. The end result is that right now Germany is polluting more than when it was using mainly nuclear energy and gas. That's the end result right now. So, and Belgium says, hold my beer, and is doing the same thing.
Yeah,
We're closing down nuclear plants as well, despite massive protests and everybody saying, like, are you out of your mind? And so on. And many countries are doing that. France is going the other way now. They recently got rid of the law that said that we're going to go renewable. They're like, nope, we are building new nuclear plants and we're going to get very rich exporting energy. But all that takes time. So we'll see, and that's why I always follow the South African situation a lot, because you guys have definitely a bunch of problems with electricity infrastructure and just how that changes society when
yeah,
people suddenly find out that electricity is not stable. You can't count on it anymore, and
yeah,
it's gonna come and go and so on. That's what you guys have been living with for a while now.
yeah,
And like you said, you're in a supermarket and there you go. The lights go out, you're in the dark.
mm,
That's it. How do you deal?
yeah.
Yeah. That's
And I mean,
that's go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
going back to the neighborhood watch thing and just patrolling in that. Um, when things quieten down, we generally all just, go back to our daily routine because it's that quiet.
Yeah.
You literally see wildlife out in the streets. Um, but when we did have an issue, we found almost half an hour before load shedding would occur, through load shedding to half an hour after load shedding is when they would start hitting people's houses
Yeah.
and breaking in and stealing shit. So, it becomes a problem on that side as well because now these guys have got a schedule, almost like a shopping schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's kind of the point
it's
I wanted to make, is that when this kind of disruption happens in the modern lifestyle that people are used to, criminals adjust accordingly. They see opportunities that weren't there before. Like you said, okay, so we've got this window of opportunity now when the electricity is out. Let's go rob people. That which is, if this is new to your country, all of a sudden, like, we get these blackouts that are going to happen, and all of a sudden it's not just, okay, we can't watch Netflix right now, but no, we have to be careful because the bad
yeah,
guys might be coming to our house, which
yeah,
changes the mindset, or should change your mindset dramatically.
mm,
And it's like I said, that's why I like to stay up to date what's happening in South Africa, because you guys have been living that. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point over here, but let's put it differently. Our prime minister said last year that we're going to have a rough 4 to 5 years of
jeez,
with electricity
it's almost
because
like
of
he made
this.
a decision that it's going to be
Yeah,
rough, you
yeah.
know?
Well, we have elections in a few months, so but
Yeah,
then whoever gets elected doesn't matter. Again, you can't switch on a nuclear plant just like that. That's not how it works.
mm,
And you can't just get uranium anywhere. It's not in the supermarket. There's a
yeah,
lot of stuff that goes on with that. So, and Belgium holds the world record in forming a government. I think it's 600 days or something after the elections. Yeah, we were longer than Iraq after the Gulf War. Yay, us, number one. So, when we talk about dysfunctional countries, I feel your pain.
yeah. But at the same time, there's so much shit going on all over the world.
Yeah,
Look at the US, look all over Europe. To be honest, I don't know any different. I was born here.
yeah,
I've lived my whole life here. From an outside perspective, it might seem, like, dark place, dangerous place, or whatever, difficult dealing with all of the shit. But with everything going on, I actually feel safer here on the tip of Africa than anywhere else. We're less likely to get nuked
that's
on
true.
purpose anyway. We might suffer aftermath, but I mean, you look at the States and you look at Europe, and they're pretty much the superpowers.
Yeah.
And then, all of the bad characters in between. It's yeah, I don't know if I would want to be anywhere else, if you know what I'm saying, at this point in time. At least, with I joke about it, but it's true, is there's a lot of corruption in this country. The state of the country is purely a result of corruption and greedy people stealing cash.
Yep.
But growing up here, you kind of learn how to navigate that corruption. You can get certain things, you can get uh, certain permissions, if you grease the right gears.
Yep.
Um, whereas a first world country, I don't think I would know what to do if I lived there. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
see what you mean. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, I forget where I read it. Somebody said it a while ago, and it was South African couple who were either living in the United States or just visiting, I don't remember. And a person either close to them or that they knew talked about, yo, I just got carjacked, and that person was, all shook up about it, and like it was so dangerous here, dangerous, and this and that. And the South African couple was like, "Oh, you were carjacked only once?" And it's like, "Yeah, one time. That's not too bad."
yeah,
Whereas for the average Westerner, that's like, "What?" So and it's strange how you get used to anything. I remember my dad talking about being a child in the Second World War, and they would I've told this story many times before that they would steal ammunition from the German soldiers and
yeah,
basically unscrew the bullets and pour them out on the windowsill and then light a match and see it go off.
yes,
That was his youth growing up. That's what they did for fun during a war, during a world war.
oh shit,
Survived. So, what is normal? Who the hell knows?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, I'd like to go over to the bonus part on Patreon with the question for my patrons. But before we do, where can people reach you?
You can reach me via Instagram. My Instagram handle is echo.delta.charlie.
Okay.
On Facebook is the same. It'll be XK Echo Delta Charlie. And then my email is info@Echo Delta Charlie, the full words. It's quite a mouthful, but the EDC
All
was already taken.
right.
So I just ran
Okay.
with it. Yeah.
Well, I'll put links to that in the show notes for this episode. So for the people listening, if you want to see all the links of the stuff that we talked about, just go to wimsblog.com/, and then the number of this episode, which is going to be, I have no idea which one. Just to let the numbers, just type those in, and then you automatically get to my page on my site where I just put all the links for reference. That's easier for everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was a lot of fun, particularly like just the detailed explanation of how the knives are made and all the small little details of why this and why that. I always find that fascinating. Any parting words before we go to the bonus part?
No, just thank you, Wim. Yeah, I wasn't expecting your message to start with. I've never done anything like this before.
Oh, okay.
You know, I do know I've got a reputation with my knives, but at the same time, I'm very much got that imposter syndrome, still stuck in there. Even looking at a finished knife, the way that I build it, I build it and I only see this. I'm doing the handle, I'm doing the
Yeah,
grind.
yeah.
And then when it's done, I give it to my wife for quality control before it goes out the door. So afterwards, seeing clients' photos, I'm like, shit, I made that. It's still a bit of like a, yeah, yeah.
If it's any
But thank you.
consolation, I've been doing this for many decades, and I have the same thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's a video or an article or a book that I write or whatever it is. First of all, I'm never happy with the result.
Yes.
Often I
Yeah.
can't stand it anymore. There's not a single book that I've written that I've reread. They're just locked away in a closet. I don't want to see them anymore because it
Yeah.
was such a long time working on it and lots of frustration and so on. And when I do look at some of my older work, I'm like, oh, cringe. It's like this is so
Yes.
bad.
Yeah.
So it's not just you, man. Don't
It's
worry about
really,
it.
yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you again for having me.
It was my pleasure. So, folks, we are going to head on over to the bonus section on Patreon. There will also be a link to that video in the show notes. As always, like, share, subscribe, and just share this with everybody who might enjoy this episode as well. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.